welcome to the Biddy Tarot podcast. I am so excited to have Angie Banicki here today with me. Angie is a high-profile entertainment publicist turned tarot card reader to the stars, and what started as a hobby is now a full-time job and lifestyle for Angie that's all about living with awareness and intention. So Angie's known for her grounded approach to spirituality, and she really helps clients to understand their life patterns and encourage positive shifts as well. And she works with celebrities, with politicians, industry leaders, and she's also had some really awesome collaborations with brands like Dior, Choo. That is so cool. And that she's really a very sought after figure for high profile events. So with all of that, welcome, Angie. It's such a pleasure to have you here. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And I've got to say, I just love how you have, found your way into the world of really the mainstream base and bringing tarot into that mainstream with your like celebrity readings and working with, quite high profile influencers. So just want to say hats off to that and kudos. I think it's amazing. Tell me, where did all of this begin? Like how did you get into tarot in the first place?
I mean, it really was not, it very much found me where I was not someone that was like, I want to learn this. I was more I was never really interested. I would say the first half of my life, the first 30 years of my life, I was like head on in work and like working in entertainment and throwing events and marketing. And then around 33, I guess before that I started getting curious about friends who would go to, astrologers or tarot readers. But really around then is when I started having dreams and my lights would talk to me. I felt like it was just a flood of like, I couldn't ignore that the unknown was like seeking to work through me. And I tried to avoid it as long as possible. I was like, oh, this is just something fun. And someone gave me the cards. And it wasn't even until after a year probably where I had cards that it came out. Not even my mom didn't even tell me. Her sisters were like, oh yeah, your great grandmother had tarot cards. And like anytime she had dreams, like she was never wrong. And like, but then they were like, she threw the cards away because she started seeing so much negativity and darkness. And my story has always been like, oh, these resurfaced through me to really shift that narrative of like the fear and to be scared of the darkness and to like accept the responsibility and also how powerful and, cool this can be. So yeah, it happened to me. Long story short, they came to me and I did it for fun until there came a point where I was like, okay, this is all I want to do all the time. So I need to make it my job.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me like what was happening at that time that you sort of switched from like, this is just a fun party trick to there's actually something quite real behind this?
Well, I think it was like people started asking me like, I want to pay you for a session. And it was more so not just that, but that I felt like I was having these moments where at the time I was still working with like some clients doing, talent collaborations and like doing sort of bigger deals. And I realized all I want to be doing is sitting with someone and like unlocking things with them and like having this like really deeply emotional experience. And I was like, who cares if Luke Wilson is going to the Budweiser, suite at Staples Center? I was like, I want to be, figuring life out like with clients. And so then I was just like, oh, it doesn't matter. I don't care about the money of like, I really felt this sort of like, I just want to do that. I don't know how I could want to do anything else. And I loved the magic and the unknown and the surprise of things to be like, oh my God, I can like help someone figure something out, like it would just felt so cool because again, I was someone who lived kind of, I was raised, my parents were teachers. It was like, you get a job and you work. And all of a sudden to have this magical thing where I was like, this can be a job. And like, it's like, what is happening? It really, it was too much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And so you were working as a publicist. Did you start to incorporate tarot into that work at all, like reading for any of your clients, or did you keep them both very separate?
No, I definitely I remember I definitely would like pull cards for the clients because again, like they would be paying me for the other stuff. And I'd be like, oh, by the way, this, or like we would sometimes use the cards. God, I haven't thought about this in a while, but sometimes I would use the cards to ask about like, should I be doing this for the clients? Like, cause for me, once I learned and I really like was self-taught, like I read lots of books, but it wasn't like I found like a mentor or like a program. I just like gathered lots of information and practiced a lot. And so, yeah, having these clients, it was a way, and there wasn't this pressure on it because I'd be like, should we ask the cards? And I definitely sometimes would. I remember one of my clients calling and saying, oh my God, I feel like someone in your New York office is doing something like that's going to get you in trouble or you need to be careful. And like her calling me, like a week later, it was like, oh my God, you should not be getting celebrities for us. You should be reading tarot cards for a living. So yeah, it became this like fun. And then she took me to it was Carlene who I worked with at Anheuser-Busch. And she took me to a numerologist because she's like, we got to figure out what's happening with you. And the numerologist was like, oh yeah, at 33, she had an opening, he saw some of the things and was telling us about it. So it was pretty cool. It was like I got that nudge also, right? Like even from the people I was working with here, they were like, oh, you need to follow this gift.
Yeah. I think that's awesome when you start to get more and more like green lights where people are just saying, you got to do this, because it's what really boosts your confidence and starts to lock it all in. I'm curious, like were your clients celebrities or were your clients more like other publicity type?
Yeah, no, it started off, I was not, because I was so unsure about doing this as a career and just the responsibility of like having someone pay me for this advice. I was so not wanting clients. Like I was like even if I would run into someone, they'd be like, oh my God, I heard you're doing this. I need to come for a reading. I never followed up. I never I made people have to like sort of like get it, you know what I mean? Like say to me, no, I really want a reading. And so all of those, and especially I kind of had a separation a bit from entertainment when it was starting to happen, where I almost just like pulled back from all of that, where it wasn't like all of a sudden that I was reading all of these celebrities that I knew. It was sort of a separation. And even some of the talent I feel like that I first read, it was really just word of mouth, because I live in LA. And so a lot of people that I would read would be like a stylist to someone. And then they would tell their client, oh my God, I just had this reading. You should go do it, And so it really kind of happened like that. And then there were some people like I remember, I don't think he would mind if I was like telling the story, but like Andy Samberg, who I knew, from before he was on SNL. And I remember helping with like a friend's bachelor party that he was going to. Somehow I was with a bunch of them and he was like, I'm kind of scared to do it. And I was like, let's try, he was like, okay, fine. If I'm going to do this, like he's the type that would ever get his tarot cards read, but because it was me and he knew me and he's sort of like, wait, I'm really curious, and then I read his why. So like that kind of happened, but that was way later. And again, not in a way where he didn't hire me. We were on this trip and I was like, do you want to do it? So, and then the other stuff really was word of mouth. Yeah. And then I think, and then some people that I would know, eventually would kind of come around like, I heard you're doing this. What?
Yeah. And even, as you're talking about, I can just see the passion, and I really do believe in like just following that passion and that energy. And particularly, that's how I came into tarot, is just because I loved it so much. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't know where it would all, turn up. I just went with it because it was just.
How long have you been doing it? Because I know when I first started, like you were referenced to me so many times. Biddy, it was like I feel like you're like the OOG of the tarot.
I started in 1999 is actually when I went first online. Like, so it is pretty OG.
Wow. So were you the first like site online?
Oh, when I started, there were like, I don't know if you know of like Yahoo groups, and there were kind of more these like funny little email connection groups, but really not a lot. Yeah. So it's that was kind of awesome with like Biddy Tarot, I think, because it has really been online since the beginning of time. And it's really grown from that place. And I think, that really just speaks to sometimes you just got to follow your heart and your passion and just do it just because. I didn't know at that time that the internet would blow up and it would mean that, we could have like this amazing business that serves my family and my, team and their family and all of our community. You just got to go with it, right? And it's probably the same with you. When you started reading cards, there was no concept that this would become a full-time job at some point. And so like, what does life look like now when it comes to tarot? Are you pretty much reading every day, or like what's kind of your typical
it's
day?
really changed in the last few years because, as I mentioned to you, I have my own deck coming out, and I went to a point, I don't know how your whole transition with the tarot went, but for me, once I got into the biz, it was a slow roll at first, but really once I got in, I was just talking about this today too. Like, I would read all day. I was not all my friends were like, you need to take care of your energy. I would do like 7 readings a day. I would just be back to back. And like, cause I loved it. And I was just so connected in. And it was like, I just wanted to share it as much as I could. And I've always been like a workhorse, but it was really because I, loved it. And I would say in the last, like, I don't know if I'm being really like the 2 or 3 years, like I just got to a point where I was like, I've never really experienced burnout. I'm always like, it's fine. But I got to a place where it's like the universe was like, that's not your purpose anymore to do 8 readings a day and just like dig in and sit. And so this last 2 or 3 years has really been, I like slowed down for a while where I was like, am I going to stop? Like, what do I do? And every once in a while I would do a reading and be like, I love it. But then I'm like tired. And then I would say like 6 months ago, something kind of came back in where I was like, oh my God, I love it so much. Like, what was I thinking? I can't stop this, but I just have to I had to like reset and remanage how I'm doing that, how I'm doing readings, which feels really good because now I do a few, probably, a few a day. It depends. Sometimes I'll have a week where I'm just doing a few big events. And then, I have some client, I don't know. I feel like every time I'm like, I'm not really doing that much. There are just some people that I've read. I don't know if you feel this, but if they text me and they're like, I need you, it's like soulmates where I'm just like, okay, like whatever you need. But I try not to book. As much. And so now I'm really working on like launching this deck and figuring out, I taught for a while and I'm in the process now, of figuring out how I want to teach. The people that I was working with to teach before, it didn't work out and I kind of had some PTSD. And now I'm like really figuring out how I want to do it my way. This like testing period now and figuring things out.
Yeah, I can definitely relate because I did a good, 10 years of professional readings. I got up to about 10,000 readings in total. I loved it when I did it, but I hit burnout. And I did exactly what you did. I would take a couple of months off and then I'd get recharged again. But within, a month or 2, I would just burn out. And I knew it wasn't sustainable. I even tried, and I want to chat with you about your pricing because I think it's really smart, but I was increasing my prices to try and think like, oh, well, maybe if I just receive more financial reward, I'm going to feel differently about it. But I didn't. And the dynamic started to change. And I was like, oh, I don't think I'm meant for this anymore. It was wonderful when I did it, but not meant for it. And so that's how I've moved into things like teaching, which just lights me up, so much. And I think this is probably, many tarot readers can relate with this journey because I do think that there is a ceiling. There's a point at which you go, oh, I can't, like it's all relying on me and my energy. And there's a max out point. But even doing like, I often talk about not just doing tarot readings, but how could you do like more coaching packages or even just small group work? Might not necessarily be teaching tarot, but how could you use tarot to support more people on a more sort of scalable level? So yeah, I think it's kind of a natural progression for people. If someone can do like 20 plus years of tarot reading, like hats off to them. But it just wasn't for me.
It makes me feel so good to hear that you had that experience because it was right around 10 years for me too. I mean, it's interesting. It's really like, it's like our physical body or like, again, I'm like, no, my soul like is guiding me into a better way or how I'm meant to be sharing the gift, right? Like, which clearly
Mm.
you followed, and I'm just still like, okay, show me, help me
Yeah.
see.
And, there were a few people that kind of criticized or questioned me going like, well, how are you teaching tarot if you're not still reading? Like, I want to learn from someone who's, reading tarot. I'm like, you know what? I've done 10,000 readings. I think I know what I'm doing. And it's actually better if I put my full energy and attention into teaching people now rather than being split, because it's a huge amount of energy to keep reading. So that might be an interesting thing for you as well, kind of playing with like that concept of, I think you just, you kind of, it's the word, I keep thinking it's the word like you've cut your teeth. The phrase, I always mix up my phrases, so something like that. Anyway, but actually, I would just want to talk a little bit about your pricing too, because I think if you set your price at around $1,000 for a reading, and tell me a bit about the journey to getting to that point and what it feels like at that point. Because a lot of people struggle with pricing and they're like, oh, it's only $50.
Yeah, I mean, should I tell you, it's like deeply uncomfortable for me to have that price, but I've realized it's because, like I just said to you, I can't do very much. And then when and to be fair, clients who I've been with forever, a lot of them I still allow to pay like the $500. Like it's pretty wow. But the way I got to it, for people who are like, for me, I have such a heart. I'm always like, I would not even pay 500. like, so it's such a weird thing to be like, you should pay me. But for me, I'm like, that allows me then to, when there are people in need who really need it, to be able to give for less, or to do things like having a daughter, like for me really made it sort of like my time is valuable because I need to be able to spend it with her. And to me, honestly, I just like, I can't do as much. So I was like, this limits more people. And then again, if someone emails me and they're like, if my schedule will allow, if I can like fit things in, then I can do things like that where I'm like, okay, I can feel this person needs me. And so it's sort of how I've like fixed it in my head too, where I've been like, and then when I was teaching also, I was like, oh, there's ways to still share this without just being like, oh, you have to pay me $1,000 an hour. Right. Or like when I do events, like I'm reading a ton of people and like not always being paid that, but I get to like, share a lot. But yeah, it was hard for me to, but then once I think there was something about just putting it online and just being like, oh, that is what it is. And like not thinking about it, like that's what helped me, because like when people ask me, I just get like, I still get a little uncomfortable where I'm like, ooh, it's kind of a lie. Just put it out. Okay, this is what it is. And yeah, my daughter helped a lot with that, because it was just like, it changed my life to be like, well, she's my number one and she needs my energy the most. And that's worth a lot to me. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think having kids makes you really prioritize and value your time in different ways, because, yes, you could give an hour to someone in a reading, and it's probably, to be honest, it's a bit more than that, because there's an energetic investment plus prep and so on. Or you can give that to your family and, your kids. So there is a lot of value in knowing you're like,
we should be able to be like, it's my time, like, and I need that. Right. But I can't, like, having my daughter made me like, right, this is important, but I think if I was, or we all should be able to be like, this is what my time is worth, I'm still working on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, for those folks who might think that it's impossible to charge $1,000, are you getting clients who are paying you $1,000? Yeah.
Yeah.
Boss. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. I always like tell friends when I'm like a stranger comes on and I'm like, what stranger can send that much money? Like, it still always kind of throws me where I'm like, wouldn't you at least check in with me first? Like when I just get $1,000 sent, I'm like, oh, right, there are people that will pay it.
And I'm curious, have you found that your clients' expectations have changed, or the dynamic has changed? Do they value the reading more? Do they expect more from you? What's sort of different?
No, it was so funny where I was thinking about this recently where like, honestly, no, like I feel like sometimes I will say that I feel like the exchange almost becomes more powerful without anyone like almost like, oh, okay, you're paying this, like you're getting it, but it's not on a conscious level. It's not, definitely at first I was like, okay, I want to make sure this is really good. Like, I had this thing to be like, okay, I need to make sure, but after a few times I was like, oh no, it works and it works great. And it feels very like a really good exchange and everyone's happy. And, back to what we were talking about before, when I was feeling depleted, it really made me feel like, okay, like this works. And this is an exchange for me too.
Because I remember like in my very, very, very first days, like, 20 plus years ago, I used to charge like $10 for a Celtic cross reading, right? And I was just doing it because I enjoyed doing it and thought I would make some money with it. But I remember from that, people would just take it or leave it. They wouldn't really take the reading that seriously because they've put in such a minimal investment into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is very true. And that's what I find, where there was a while there in my burnout phase where I was doing events and I would get like someone would sit down and I would be like, oh my God, like, cause it would be like, I would have like 5 minutes with them and they would be like, oh my God, how could you? And I would come home and be like mad. Like, I was like, yeah, I get paid to do that. Like, I'm good at my job. You know what I mean? I had this sort of thing to be like, yeah, this is really good information. I'm helping you. Like they were sort of like, oh, party trick. Like you actually know something. And I would get like so angry to be like, this is real. Take this. Like I'm trying to help you here. We're giving you a message, So to your point, that's where I was like, like, no, this is value. I want you to share in the value I know that this brings.
Yes. And, you probably wouldn't think twice about paying a business coach $1,000 an hour for, high quality, high impact information. In fact, in the business coaching world, $1,000 is probably quite cheap. It's probably usually like $10,000 to be working with like really top notch or plus, So the same should be the same with tarot, because the quality of the information and the impact of that information can be huge. Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're kind of moving out of the tarot reading space now and into the tarot courses, but also the tarot deck. So tell me more about your deck. Tell me about what it is. And then I'm curious to kind of dive into the journey of creating that and birthing it into the world as well.
Sure. So, I mean, I've been wanting to do it, but I have no visual skills. I am not an artist. This channel works great for me, but this one is like, so I knew I needed the right person, but it felt so important to me to have it feel like such a strong partnership and not just like hiring a designer. And so I spent years like kind of like met with a few people and things wouldn't really quite pan out. And I had mentioned a while ago to someone I'd worked with in PR, like who now does design. I don't remember when I first mentioned it to her, but she kind of laughed. And I was like, oh, okay, no. Like I like texted her, should we do a tarot deck? And she was like, ha ha ha. She's not into any of this at all. And then during the pandemic, she reached out and she was like, should I help you design a tarot deck? And I was like, yes. And it's been, like a 2.5 year journey. But it's been so cool because she didn't know anything about tarot, and really the way we designed it, because it wasn't like, I just knew I want it to feel like the Rider-Waite. I was so connected to the Rider-Waite and had learned with like, that was my deck. And I felt like the wisdom of like, I liked that they were the oldest, right? And I was like, okay, I want to capture some of that. But then we just spent a lot of time playing in it. And, I channel through music. So I do like a playlist and I have songs that I just hit shuffle during a reading. And that's sort of how the magic happens for me. And so the deck also has songs with each card. So the idea is you can go play the song and like listen to the song and see what that evokes for you, in addition to looking at the image. Because like for me, hearing the music, sometimes I'll like, oh, I understand more of the depth of the meaning there. So that was kind of fun to incorporate that.
So does that mean, so you started in the pandemic, so it was about a 4-ish year creation?
Well, I guess near the end, like she texted me, I think near the end of the pandemic, and then we slowly have been like building this. Yeah. And then, and they're just coming out, and it's been lots of delays, and, you know, like we thought they were coming out a year ago. And then, you know, when you have to get all of the things and like all of the things, but yeah, they're finally here. And it's been, I've never had a product. I've never had something that's mine. And, you know, doing PR for other people, I loved that. I loved being able to talk about, and it's so different to have it, you know, be mine. And I'm like having such a lesson of receiving where, you know, I've invested a lot in this. And at one point we were like, oh, we'll hire PR. And then we were like, wait, we can't afford to do PR. But I've had so many friends show up in ways like I just called the designer Casey yesterday, and I was like, I just cried because my friend called and said, I want to do a dinner party for you and like invite people, and we're going to like do the cards. And I was like, I was so uncomfortable. Like, I was like, I said yes, but like, I don't know why. I just want to go hide under the covers. And she was like, I think this is a lot for you. And it's been, you know, even right now, I like, even coming into this interview, there's something that feels like very raw still that, you know, I'm like grappling with in like sharing that. And I'm trying to just really be here for all of it and really acknowledge it, versus I think in the past I would have just like faked it sort of, you know, and now I'm like, okay, no, I'm just going to admit I'm uncomfortable and like at the same time excited.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really interesting thing to tap into, because even like for me, publishing books, launching our Biddy tarot deck, we also published another like everyday tarot deck, all of that, or even launching a brand new course, like it is a part of yourself that you have like nurtured. I always think it is like pregnancy and birth, you know, this project has been sitting in your womb space and you've been growing it and nurturing it and giving it all of your like love and energy. And now you're kind of birthing it into the world. And you don't know, like, is it a boy or a girl? You know, are they going to be okay? What's their life going to be like? And just kind of having that vulnerability.
You just want to love it no matter what. You're like, no matter what, I'm going to love you. There's no expectation. Like, it's so funny you say that, because I kept saying to my friends in PR who have been like, oh, I got this interview for you. I've been like, you're my birthing doula. You're my birthing doula. Like, it's to your point. That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, whether you're going to be a good parent or not, like, are you going to be able to give this product baby the life that it really deserves? And you do everything to try and bring it into the world. But at the end of the day, and I have teenage daughters, so I'm now at that point where I realize, I could try my hardest, but it doesn't really matter, because they have their own minds and they will do it the way they want to do it. And I think it is the same with a product. Like, you can give it its absolute best, like, start to life, but there's a point at which you have to like let go and go, all right, now it's over to you. You have a soul and a destiny, and I trust that you're going to do the best that you can with that. And I release you. And I've actually done that with a few of like my books and products, where I really ritualized and ceremonialized that point at which I say, okay, I've done everything I can. I now release you, and I wish you the very best in this world. Good luck. You go for it.
Great. That's so beautiful. That's such great advice. I'm so happy you told this to me, because I have been saying, I need to ritualize it a little bit, but I have been saying things where I'm just like, please, like, they keep being my partner and they're like, we need to have this strategy. And I'm always like, I don't have a strategy. I just want people I love to want to do stuff together. And like, that's it. And they're like, that's not how it works. And like the first time I said it, the next day I ran into a celebrity who was like, Angie, oh my God, I want to do a tarot bit. And I like texted them and they were like, how does this even happen to you? And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like that's because I don't want to control it too much. Like to your point, like I don't want to be the parent that's like, this is where you have to go. This is what you have to do. It's more just like, how are you meant to be in the world? And like, here we go.
Yeah. And even asking the product, like just show me what is it that, how do you want to come into this world? What is it that you want to be? How do you want to be expressed, for example? Because even I found like, no doubt if you're saying that yours was due a year ago, you've probably encountered the similar challenges that we did, which was, like working with one supplier that said, oh, yeah, we know everything about tarot cards. We can make them. And literally this guy walked away with $25,000 of our money and produced nothing and has never been heard from again. It's just like gone off with that money. And so these are things like at the very beginning I heard in my intuition, I was like, oh, I don't think these are the right people, but they talk such a strong game. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe we'll just keep trying, but it screwed us until we finally found, hate to say it, but some wonderful women who just really saw our vision, had made tarot cards before, and they just produced an absolutely beautiful deck. And they went over and above actually to provide so many different samples, whereas this group of more marketing men were just going, oh yeah, we can get it and we get it cheap. And it's like, whatever.
I don't even talk about things where I'm like, oh my God, your story so parallels things that have happened in my life. And it makes me feel so much better because I've also had the same experience where I'm like, oh, when I found women partners, like working with this designer and our business person, like I've never felt more like safe. It sounds weird to say safe, but like safe and just like really like trusting. And even when things come up, it's not always perfect and things are going to happen, but like when you feel really good in partnership, it's so powerful to move through even the hard stuff and like find your way. And I've found that with women also.
Yeah. And I know we're focusing on gender, but really what it does boil down to is actually partnering with people who really get what it is that you're creating and can see your vision. They're not there just to sell some, product, right? And just make you lots of money. People who actually go, yeah, we get that you want like beautiful cardstock and we've got to nail those colors like perfectly. And we're going to send you all of the different types. Like, and I've been looking at the samples going, I can't tell the difference between these purples, but they're telling me there's a difference. I love that they're trying to, make sure that we've got the right purple. This is wonderful. Yeah. So I think it is really about finding people who actually get and align with your vision and trusting that process, because oftentimes, yeah, we can kind of be under this like illusion that someone gets it or, they're gonna make it really successful for you. But if you're not feeling that connection, it probably isn't the right partnership. So your deck is called the Explorer of the Soul. Who is it for? What do you envision? How do you envision this deck coming into being with different readers, and how can they use it?
Well, our mission was sort of like our tagline is a tarot. It's tarot for everyday magic. And I think because the way I was telling you, it started for me was just sort of this like exploring and wanting to figure out and like teaching myself. I really have this intention here that's like, on one hand, the Explorer of the Soul shows some of the depth of it, but really the everyday magic is like, I wanted to be for someone who's just like, I want to pull a card a day. Like, I want to feel connected to the magic and just see what happens. Like, I want it to feel so light and easy and like this just like exploring tool, but that could also, go much deeper. But yeah, the intention there is like really starting off light and like allowing it to open you up, even like I was saying with the music, where it's like putting on a song and then having that evoke a feeling that's like, oh, how did that, like, that feels like exactly the way I'm feeling today. And like, now I want to figure out more.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. And where can people get the tarot deck from?
They are sold on our website, exploreofthesoul.com.
Awesome.
For now, that's where there's a few other ways they're going to be sold. We're working on that, which has been some of my fun, like, marketing background. Like, we're looking at fun ways to collaborate with other brands and do cool things. So that's been kind of fun also. TBA.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure once this podcast is released, all the information will be on your site. So explorerofthesoul.com. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And what else have you got coming up in the next sort of 6 to 12 months, or is it more of a wait and see?
It's a lot of wait and see. It's a lot of, it feels like right now I'm still in that cocoon phase, and I'm like, kind of like, it's like I'm coming out of the cocoon and dabbling with different ideas, but nothing I'm ready to share yet.
I love the mystery. Secrecy.
Oh, I think by the time this comes out, there's going to be a little bit on my site about how I'll be teaching. I'm just not rushing the process. And I think I'm also moving through some of my fear around like doing things different. Like I said, like when I had it the same way with you, I don't want to do anything about making money. And so I'm just really having to get really, really clear. I will say one of the things that I'm starting to do are these tarot dinner parties where, again, this idea of sort of opening up, like my favorite thing is when people are like, I'm not really into that. And like, I love when I shift someone where they're like, what just happened? Like, I wasn't expecting that. And so I've been doing these tarot dinner parties where I put a card under the plate and we have the music going, we set the stage and open up this conversation. And then I kind of like pull some more cards, and it really engages people and also engages people for each other. Oh my gosh, the birds just started going crazy out my window. Very talkative out there. But in my mind, like helping engage people to tap into their own intuition and like watching the magic of that at a table where it's like, oh my God, you guys are reading each other. We were at a dinner party at our friend's house, and I was like, oh, can we do this? And like one of the husbands who's like, I don't want to. And then by the end, he was like reading. I was like, Bobby, what would you say that says? And I was like, whoa, you're channeling. Like I read cards and you told it way better than I can. Like, and that's like my favorite, right? To be like, oh my God, like who knew that was in you? Anyway, Yeah,
I can relate. Yes, it is. It's so joyful for me to see like when someone can start picking up cards. I just teach them a few quick things, and then it happened at a business mastermind I was at, and this one woman, she picked up the cards. I showed her how to read like really quick, and she's like, "I love this," and then she started doing readings for everyone, and I'm kind of like listening and going, you're nailing it. This is pretty good. Well done.
But also, see, that's what I love. Like you're like, I gave her a quick reading. You weren't like, she took my like 20-hour course. You were like, I gave her something and she opened to it. And there was like she tapped in and she got, right? Like, how cool is that? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Very cool. Yeah. Awesome. And so where can people find out more about you and all of your exciting work that's coming up?
On my website, angiebanicki.com. So Angie, BANICKI.com.
Awesome. And we'll post that below in the show notes as well. Angie, thank you so much. It's been such an awesome conversation today.
No, I loved hearing some of your story too. Now I feel like I'm going to go on a deep dive. Google something new. Sorry.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much and take care. Hey, if you loved this video, then make sure you check out this next video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you next time.